let the interview begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the For Love of Nerds podcast. I'm here with Edward Ghertner. Hi, Ed. Thanks for being here.
I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is in this weird world these days.
Yeah, it's been quite the roller coaster the past 18 to 20 months. So
yeah.
So through all that, how has work been?
It's been interesting. I'm on a Disney TV series that actually hasn't been announced yet, but we're almost done with the first season.
Oh, nice.
So we've been actually working pretty good at home. It's been kind of nice. I miss working with people though, but it really gives at least for me, a chance to pick my own time when I want to work and when I can work, and it's been going pretty good.
Have you found projects to be more challenging, or yeah?
Well, the things that I have found, it's a little bit more challenging, just in the fact that you can't run down the hall and talk to somebody, even though we have all these apps and things. But communication has been a little tough. But for the most part, what I've been finding is that you have to do your work. So those that have been slacking off are probably having a harder time doing their work.
Of course. And what attracted you to a career? This career, yes.
Insanity. No, when I was a kid, my grandfather worked at Walt Disney Studios as a transportation guy, drove trucks around.
Okay.
And so he was able to bring home movies. And so as a kid, you'd had to go to the theater to see them.
Yeah.
And so me and my sisters, on our birthdays, we would ask for a certain movie to watch and have all our friends come over. And I just kind of liked what I saw. And my mom said I was always drawing as a kid. I was always imagining things and doing things. And so I thought, well, that could be fun. And as I got older, especially around the time when girls I started noticing them. It's like, well, look, I can draw something, and it attracted them. So, as a heterosexual guy, it was kind of like, great, so in school, I was drawing all over the place. And I would take a lot of art classes and shop classes. And so it kind of led me in that direction. And since my grandfather worked at Disney, I thought, I'd ask him, like, can you get me in there? I want to talk to some of the guys. And so he did. And he gave me a phone number. That's all he did for me. And I went in and I talked to the guys running the studio. And this was probably around 73, 74. And they were just getting started at Cal Arts. They were just going to start their program up at the California Institute of the Arts. And they said, you'd probably be pretty good, to get in our system up there. And I said, okay. And they said, well, just do a portfolio, do some more drawing. And I sat with a bunch of the old timers, and not knowing, I was always enthralled about how they could draw, and not really knowing who they were, I said, oh yeah, this is great. I sat with him and her, and so I started keeping a portfolio of my drawings. And I was lucky enough at the time, so it must have been 70, it might have been 76 when I turned it. That had to be before then. I watched the Olympics, so I would do some quick drawings, of the athletes,
Yeah.
and it got me to draw really fast because he had to. I couldn't say, wait, could you stop? So I had a lot of Olympic human motion drawings in my
Oh
portfolio.
wow, nice. So obviously, as you said, for Disney, you got the job, and now you've worked on some of the most iconic films, going like Lion King, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
What was it like working on them? Was there a lot of pressure?
Well, it was interesting because when I started, I went through Cal Arts for 4 years, and I went in right after I graduated, and this was June of 1980, and it was funny because the studio had been kind of in this fog after Walt had died, and a lot of the older animators had taken over, and they did Aristocats and Robin Hood.
Oh yeah.
And it was moving, but it was very outdated, so to speak. I love this stuff, but it was, at the time, it was still dragging here, and everything else was moving ahead. So I came in on Fox and the Hound, and this was at the time when Don Bluth had just left, so they needed a lot of people, which was great. So I came in the middle of Fox and the Hound and got to work with everybody in the 2D world, and a lot of the bigger shots were held to later. So I got to do the last multiplane shot that they used in the old cameras, and I worked with a lady named Ruthie Thompson, and she was old back then in 1980. But so we were working together. She just celebrated her 110th birthday. She's still hanging on. She's great. Her brain,
Wow.
she's still going, but which makes me feel old because now, but it was a little, I don't want to say, how do I, for me, I worked in the old animation building,
Right.
and got to do that. And I was in a room with Don Griffith, who had been the layout supervisor for the past 30 years before I got in there. And my teacher at school was his boss.
Oh wow.
So that was Ken O'Connor. So it was like from 30 to 50, Ken was kind of the supervisor, so to speak. And then Don Griffith, and then I came in, and my room, I was in the room with him, and next door was Willie Reitherman, and Frank and Ollie were down the hallway. And so I had a lot of the 9 old men still there that I could work with. And I would question and ask questions, and I always said, I hope I'm not bothering you. I just want to learn as much as I can. And they were great about it. Even in college, Ken O'Connor was teaching us layout, and because he was in the business, he knew all these people, and Mike Maltese and Maurice Noble had come up from Warner Brothers.
Oh wow.
And so I got to talk to them, and I said, we should write this stuff down. We got to do a book. And they were like, yeah, we got to do that. And unfortunately, they've all passed on. So about 10 years ago, I wrote a book on layout. It's layout and composition for animation. And basically it's what I learned from them. And I always tell people, it's just how I learned it and how I do things. You might be able to read into it and do it your way, but it's really the basics. And why we do what we do, and what layout actually is. It's been kind of the maligned, everybody says it from each group, they don't give us enough credit.
Yeah.
But basically layout was art direction. It was the art direction department until the union started in 1940. And they had to split it up in layers. So it became art direction. You'd have an art director, and then you had journeyman layout, and you had assistant layout, and then you had apprentice. And basically layout is designing the world. And because I started out as an animator, and because I went through school right away. I went from, grammar school to middle school to high school, through college. A lot of the guys that I had gone to college with were a little bit older than me, and they had taken their subclasses that you have to take to get your degree. And I didn't have time to do that. So while I was there, I had to take those classes, and then I was taking time away from me from my work. And I wasn't picking up the animation as quickly as they were. And Jack Hanna, who was the head of the department, saw it, and he would pay more attention to the others. And I think Ken O'Connor saw that, but he saw that I had the ability to draw, and so he said, why don't you come over? I want to show you what layout is. And basically it's, we design the area, the locations. We have to set the style. We have to set the scale, lighting. And sometimes you got to do a little bit of color. So I was like, yeah, because I'd be sitting there animating, and I'm thinking, God, I got to be on this character for 3 years, drawing the same thing over and over. My God, I'm more interested in doing something different. And, but during that time, when I was at Cal Arts, I actually got a credit on, I worked on Lord of the Rings from Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, yeah.
I got to animate Frodo. So I got credit on there for being an animator, and I enjoyed it, but that was enough.
Yes, I can imagine so. Was that a big project, Lord of the Rings?
It was a strange project because Ralph at the time, he's an interesting person. He's definitely he's out there, but I really appreciated Ralph because he was trying to take animation into more of an adult area, which obviously Fritz the Cat and the more adult thing. But he had just done Wizards, and it was really a different style, and there was a lot of people, a lot of famous old artists from around the world who worked on it. So I got to, as a student and as a professional now, because I'm getting paid for it, it was interesting to work with him and that style. Unfortunately, Ralph always had a hard time with money. He wanted to do more, and it got him in trouble a few times. And so towards the end of the production, everything would start getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Right.
But we had a good time. Had a good time working on it.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Unfortunately, it didn't turn out the way we all thought it would. And we did the first act, or the first Lord of the Rings. And as the characters are walking up a hill, he held on an in-between pose, and it was like, oh my God, why'd you do that? But all of us that were at Cal Arts, we were grateful because we got to actually work in a professional situation. While we were still learning, and that was great.
Yeah, well, especially like a project like Lord of the Rings. There's obviously a lot of expectation on a project like that. So I've noticed that one of your bigger projects that you had a lot of involvement was the Winnie the Pooh. Is it the Adventures of Winnie the Pooh? You did directing as well, didn't you, and a bit of producing?
Years later, after I got in, I had quit features and then came back. I did Garfield TV specials.
Oh, yes.
And then I came back to Disney TV and did DuckTales. And then that evolved into the next show that came up, which was, they were talking about doing the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And the guy who was a producer on there, Carl Gears, was a great guy. He understood, he was an artist, but he wasn't so much talented as art as writing.
Oh, okay.
And so I said, I would love to art direct this. And it was the first time that we had done anything through the studio since the original Pooh shorts that came out. So I went through we called it the morgue, the archives, and I pulled stuff out, and I wanted to update it a little bit, but not change it too much. My own soapbox here, I feel like Disney keeps changing. People want to see the old stuff, and then they go ahead and change it. And to me, people want to see the old stuff. If you have a new stuff, do the new stuff. Don't change the old. Anyway,
No,
I know
what you mean.
there's legal situations that they go through that they have to. But so anyway, I took it and built it out. And I created, actually, I'm staring at my model here of, I created a house for Tigger because in the original story, he was staying with Rue. And so as I was art directing, I said, why don't we create a story where there's another flood and all the guys feel bad for Tigger, so they collect all the stuff that's floated up against the trees and they built him a tree house.
Oh, wow.
And I have that, actually, let's see if I can pull this down. I don't know if it's, hold on one second.
That's fine. Oh, wow.
So a tree house that I had built for Tigger, and we were going to put that in our series, but for some reason upper management didn't want to do that, and the stories didn't come through. But because I think they felt, well, we already had one flood, we don't want to do another, too much effects and blah blah blah. But that's kind of how the animation field really is, because there's so many ideas that have been brought up that never come to fruition. It's unfortunate because there's some great ideas floating around out there. But yes, I was art directing for the first season of Winnie the Pooh, and then Carl decided that he didn't want to produce anymore. I think I know why, because I took over.
Okay.
It was me and another guy, and I handled the artwork and he handled the writing end of it, and we both put the shows together. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Those were 20-minute shows. That was a standard. That's a standard half hour for the United States. I don't know if I guess it's worldwide.
Yeah.
And 10 minutes worth of commercials. But what was happening is that we were getting, what do you do with a stupid bear? He just, it's like 100 Acre Woods. Okay, he gets his head stuck in a hole again. So what we decided to do was to split it up into 2 11-minute pieces so that we could at least get a character acting down, a little piece of an idea, and just let it go. And it was interesting because I wanted to push the styling a little bit. And so as we were moving along, I said, why don't we just take the stories and have them be told by Tigger or Rabbit or Eeyore.
Yeah.
And so I actually was able to get a black and white 11-minute piece in, or at least portion of it, which I was really surprised because I thought management wouldn't go for it at all. But it was a story by Tigger, Dark and Stormy Night, and I did pen and ink, and it, that way we could change his style because it was a different character. It wasn't Winnie or Christopher Robin. And it lasted, I think I was on there, I'm trying to remember now, it's 3 years, and it lasted 4 years. I was gone for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
The final year I left and I art directed, I started to art direct Tailspin, and then I became one of the 4 directors on Tailspin because we did 52 episodes all at once.
Oh, wow.
So we split them up. We split them up against, we had 13 pieces, shows a piece. And it was that at that time, it was a lot of fun because we had some great artists and we were able to do it. And we had, during Winnie the Pooh, when we first started, Disney had purchased the Hanna-Barbera Australia studio. So I
Okay.
got to go down there and start it and pick the artists that we wanted to keep from Hanna-Barbera, and they were all great. So it was very easy for me to go down there and do the first season. I was down there for a couple weeks, and so we had basically our own studio, and they spoke English, so the communication was good, and they had understood how our system worked.
Oh,
And
nice.
so it was really a great collaboration with them. And because I think the part of the first season was done in Japan. It was Disney Japan, which used to be TMS, the Toho Movie Shinsu
Okay.
group. And so that worked out. It's unfortunate because they were good at Japan too. They were really good. But we had our own group in Australia. And after that, I went back to features. I was asked to come back and head up layout for Beauty and the Beast, which I thoroughly loved. I didn't even blink an eye. I was like, yeah, I'll go. Sign me up. Well, it had been Beauty and the Beast. They had taken over to England. Actually, the Purdums had started the movie, but it became very cold and almost live actiony, and the studio wanted to take it back into a cartoon style. So they brought everybody back to the US. And this was the time Jeffrey Katzenberg had come in, and he called us in, and we had been off, they had moved animation off the main lot years before. And they said, look, we're going to put you back on the lot. We're going to throw you in the ink and paint area. And I want 2 sequences put up on reels in 3 months. Otherwise, we're going to shut you down because we just can't seem to do this anymore. And it was like, oh God. So, I mean, there was a lot of top-notch people that there was about 13 of us, maybe a little bit more, I don't know. But Roger Allers, Kirk and Gary, Chris Sanders, me, Lisa Keene. I mean, there were a lot of people. Great talented artists. So we actually and more. I'm forgetting people's names because I love working with all these guys. So we put together a couple of the sequences and we ran it for him. He goes, "This is great. Let's go for it." And so we did. And I have to say that was the quickest and most even tempered production that I've ever worked on, because we all knew that this was it. If we didn't get this right, we were gone. This is our careers. So we were all working on it. And I have to say, from day one to the finish of layout was 1 year.
Wow, really?
Almost to the day, because the movies were taking 4 years to make. And so, we worked it out. So we knew the sequences, we knew what we had to do. We knew what was going to be reused, what we could use again and again. But it all seemed to flow really, really easily. And it worked, obviously.
And, that's good. I'm
but
glad
there's a lot of stuff that got cut out.
Really?
And later on in the history, I art directed the Human Again piece that was put into Beauty and the Beast. Was it 5 years later? No. Yes. And that was fun to do because I had great stuff working from Brian McEntee's art direction that he had done originally. In the original movie, there was a big sequence of Maurice going to the invention convention. And it was all boarded and was on reels, but it slowed the picture down. So was Human Again. Human Again was written into it, but they felt that it was slowing the picture down, so it was never put in. But we put it in the re-release.
Oh, so was there deleted scenes back then?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Was there any deleted scenes back then? On the DVD included
Uh,
or VHS?
just human again, I
Okay,
think. Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So obviously, fast forwarding a bit. So, what are you currently focused on or wanting to achieve in the next few years?
Well, I learned how to do computer graphics. I learned how to work in Alias, which turned into Maya, and it was a little unfortunate at the time when that came in, because management felt that that was the way to go and strictly the way to go,
Yeah.
instead of looking at it as a tool to be used. Because Beauty was the first time we used Maya, I think it was Alias at the time, for the ballroom. And that worked. I mean, it only worked because to me, it threw you out of the
Yeah.
picture because of the motion and the parallaxing, but it was in the song, so it worked. I came back later to work on Lion King, and we didn't use any CG
Really?
as far as location.
Oh wow.
We did in animation, but we didn't do it in for location.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a tool. Anything that Ken O'Connor did something at Cal Arts for all of us students. He brought in a painting one day just to show it doesn't matter what you use or how you're doing it, as long as it works. He brought in a painting and he asked everybody what medium the painting was done in. And latex, pencil, yeah, what else? And then people started scratching their heads like, oh, chalk, yes. And he said, there's some oil here, and there's some graphite, and there's some ink. And a couple of people said, you can't do that. He went, here it is. Do you like it? So it really doesn't matter what you use. Does it tell the story?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I kept that back here somewhere all these years. And so as my career went on, I started thinking that way. It's like, well, if we need to do something, then let's use it.
Yeah.
We were still in the 2D world. So my thinking was, let's paint traditionally and let's bring it in the CG world so that we can turn it. And we found that we could turn a flat piece of artwork at least 30 degrees without losing the magic of it. And so we did that. Later on, let's see, Atlantis, did we do? I can't remember what we did with Atlantis. We used a lot of CG, but it was mostly with characters.
Oh, okay.
But afterwards, I went to work on Curious George for Universal, and we used a lot of that. I worked on some of the shorts, the Lorenzo short that they won an award for.
Oh,
yeah. I did a lot of the CG work on there, and we actually mapped 2D imagery onto CG planes, and it worked great. Nobody could tell what it was. You just got the sense of it moving.
Yeah.
And I would love, for me personally, I'd love to do features again, but those of us who were 2D people got kind of pushed out around 2003. And so I did a lot of work on the outside. I did The Simpsons, Hellboy, Bob's Burgers.
Oh, yeah.
A thing called Neighbors from Hell, which was through DreamWorks, and then came back to Disney again. And so now I'm on a TV series, and I can't say what it is right now, but it's going to be an interesting show. Humans and vehicles that are friends, anthropomorphic.
Oh, cool.
And and there's a lot of really good artists working on it, so it'll be a fun thing. I see the industry, I'll be critical now. There's a lot of, it's hard to say. My thinking is the companies can't find places around the world to animate in the old-fashioned way. You know, like if we had to do Winnie the Pooh, I don't know if they could find a studio that could do it. There are people out there who can and want to, but
Yeah,
it depends on the cost. You know, everything is cost driven.
absolutely.
It's the thing that the artists really need to keep their eyes open, even more so than before. When I was young and coming into the business, the artists had allowed the business people to take over because we just don't want to deal with it. You know, who wants to deal with numbers? But I was an art math major, and I was kind of the weirdo who could do camera, and I understood budgetry, and I understood how to, you know, I always wanted to do more. But unfortunately, like some of the older guys, and now I'm gonna get slammed for not remembering his name, but God, the British. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting. He did Roger Rabbit. He was the director. Oh my God. This is what you call getting old. Oh well. Anyway, he did The Thief and the Cobbler,
Okay.
and you know, he had a bad reputation of not being able to keep his budget, and they actually took it away from him. It's a shame because he spent 30 years working on The Thief and the Cobbler, and Disney put up the money. Well, the distribution for Thief.
Yeah.
And it was another company that did the budgetry, and he blew the budget again, and they basically took it and slammed it out. And it's too bad because there was a lot of great artwork in Thief and Cobbler.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what happens. So right now, getting back to what I was trying to say, the budget people are taking over, and it's a shame because you can still do animation. And when I talk to students nowadays, a lot more want to do that traditional animation, which is great. And it's not just because you want to think of the old days, but that's the movement. You want to put the human touch on this stuff. The computer is great. I mean, when it first came out, I was like, computers, not gonna do shit. And I use it daily now, you know, and I love it, but it's still in its infancy. You can't, what happens from the past where you have a key animator doing a character, say for 3 to 4 years on a feature, it was that animator's sensibilities that was in that character. Now in CG, you have somebody who models a character, and you're limited by how it's rigged, how much they can afford to move, how much you can rig.
Yeah.
And which I feel takes away, and anybody in the world can animate that rig and it would still look the same. But unfortunately, it's about storytelling, and it's about the feeling and how you move a character. And I can see in the future that the computers will be able to do that. We'll kind of be able to go backwards and have a person put their own feeling and touch on a character, but it's just going to take time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Unfortunately, time is money, and the budget guys come in and they go, I can't, and it's a lot of it that you see if you hit with a character like I'm trying to think, like with Shrek, or with what are the little yellow guys from
Minions.
The
Minions.
Yeah, Minions. God, I'm getting old. The first movie cost. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like 150, $200 million, believe it or not. But when you do the second one, your models are already built, most
True.
of them.
Yeah.
So it costs less for the second movie. That's why you see a lot of sequels, because they're budgeting for that balance.
Right. Okay.
And they make a lot of money off that. The first movie they made $1 billion. So, you take away the 200 million plus whatever advertising they put into it.
Yeah.
But the second one, I think I had heard, that don't hold me to this, it only cost them 50 million to make. So
Wow.
right then and there, they saved $100 million, and they still made, a billion off of it.
Exactly.
So, in that sense, it helps us as artists because we can still work. So the artists have to start thinking a little bit more about, can we do this and how much is it cost? It shouldn't affect the story. That is the main thing. I tell everybody that, because they say, oh, you do layout. What is that? It's like, but everything is a story. It's about story.
Yeah.
You can't get away from that. If you're doing a scary picture, you got to either do black and white or very high contrast, sharp edges. It goes back to basic design and what that is. And you're trying to tell the story as well as you can. And hopefully the budget will match it. And hopefully the budget guys will see that. I had a discussion with a lot of the execs on Atlantis when we started it, because that was about the time they were starting to worry about budget, because the movies weren't making, quote, their billions of dollars that they had planned on.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if we're going to do this, it's an action adventure. This is the genre of movie. And if you look at any action adventure, it's an extra 20 minutes, because where you would normally cut, back at the ranch, the adventure is going from one place to the other. And I was trying to explain that, and it just wasn't, it wasn't going through. So what was happening is that they said, oh, we want to put it in the same box as Beauty. It's like, well, you can't, because they're going from A to B to C, whereas Beauty we could cut. And so, and I wanted to do it 70 millimeter, because that was the first time that we actually, that's one and only time that we had done a 2D version in other than what they did in C-scope.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give the animators more time to be able to move their character, to really act, because what was happening was that the scenes were getting cut so fast. Some of the scene, most of the average scene was like 2 feet, 3 feet, which is 24 frames a second, 16 frames a foot. So you had, like a second and a half. What do you do? You can't have a character turn around and think and then turn back and talk to somebody. So in the widescreen, we had the room to do it. And so there were fewer scenes, and the animators had come up to me and said, God, that was great that you did that. Now I can actually act and do something.
Yeah.
So, but it was funny, at the end of the movie, we were all sitting there, and we kept pushing, not just me, but everybody was like, we need the vistas. We want to see Atlantis. We want to see how we get there. We were in a review, and we ran the picture, and management said, we really need to see where those people are going. And we all went, oh my God. So we pulled out a lot of our artwork that we did, and we slid it into the picture. And what we did is try to reuse some of our animation, because we were budgetary, out of money, basically.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of, I don't want to say cheating. We did a lot of magic and put stuff into our backgrounds that we had done. I have to say, Atlantis is getting a big following now. It's been 20 years, actually, this month, I think, since it came out.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of artwork people have not seen from that picture. And there's a lot of great artwork. And it's too bad. I wish we could do more. But yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. That's amazing. Well, that's about it that I'd like to discuss with you today, Ed. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I hope if people like this stuff to get there, and if you really want to do it, stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone loves a bit of Disney animation, so it's a good mix. So thank you.
All righty.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for your time
Yeah.
again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Bye.